I am ranked number one. One! That means I'm the best.
Who knows, a few years down the track, Daniel Dubois could be a world champion. Or, he might not make it. He might be a David Price. He is 19 years old, the last time I read, when he signed with Frank Warren. 19 years of age, young, world's at his feet. It's good times. Frank Warren has signed him on a long-term deal. Warren is predicting big things for the kid. You hear good things about what he's done in the gym. He was a good amateur. He opted not to go for the 2020 Olympics and turn pro. 6'4", 0.5, powerfully built. He says Frank is the best promoter to take him where he wants to go. He sparred with the likes of Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, I believe. He makes his debut on the 8th of April on the undercard of Petrov versus Flanagan for Flanagan's WBO lightweight title. Frank Warren's signed a deal with British Telecom and big things are supposed to happen. His stable has a more multicultural look, which is more a realistic reflection of what a major British boxing stable should look like in 2017 in Britain, man. Definitely. And, it's going to be exciting to see what Frank does to transform Queensbury and Box Nation. But I was looking at his opponent who he faces on his debut, David Howe. He's 6'8", looks like a fairly well-conditioned guy. But Dave can't hold a shot. He was knocked out by Dave Allen in 2, and he's been stopped about 4 other times in all his other defeats. He scored 6 knockouts in 12 wins, and just a month or so after getting his ass whooped by Dave Allen, they're throwing him in with another prospect. So, it's like the major promoters are just using him up. Like Dave Allen is promoted by Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, and he was brought in to revive Dave Allen's fortunes after losing a couple on the bounce to Dillian White and Luis Ortiz. Now they want to build Dave Allen back up, so they brought in David Howe. And, it's a good opponent because Dave looks the part. Dave Howe looks the part. He's big. Until you chin him, he doesn't look too bad. Dave Allen got him out of there in 2. And Daniel Dubois will be expected to do something similar. Now, maybe Dave is just seeing it, I'm going to get a payday, and all good to the guy. But outside the ropes, me standing outside the ropes, I'm looking at it a little different, man. I mean, he's working. He's not being used or exploited per se. But in a way, he is being used. Now, let's bring Dave in, you know what I mean? Dave will give him a couple of minutes, and then even half a punch or one that misses and the breeze will put Dave Howe on the floor. And everyone will be happy. Successful debut. But I'm not a boxer. I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't think I'd like to be treated like that, man. I mean, just being brought in there to get bashed up. That's just crazy. That's crazy. He's not a journeyman. He's not a journeyman. He's not a journeyman. Let's just get that straight. He's not a journeyman. The guy he beat on points in 2012, Moses Motovu, is a journeyman. Moses is a journeyman. Moses has 5 wins, 64 losses, and 4 draws. He's only been stopped 7 times, right, in 73 contests. Moses, for the most part, knows how to survive. His object is to survive the distance and avoid a 28 or 45-day suspension from the board so he can get in the ring next week, if possible. That's how he eats. He was last stopped in 2015. He's a journeyman. Dave is more a trial horse, just a poor boxer. He may be on his way to becoming a journeyman, but he doesn't have the chin for a journeyman or the survival instincts. Yeah? He doesn't have the chin and he doesn't have enough fights currently. Moses can hold a shot. I mean, Moses can hold a shot, trust me. Moses has been stopped 7 times in 73 bouts. How much times do you think Dave Howe would have been stopped if he had the same amount of fights as Moses? He's already been stopped 5 times in less than 17 bouts. That's 2 less stoppages than Moses, who has 70 odd. He's not a journeyman. He doesn't have the survival instincts or the chin. He's actually trying to be a contender. He's trying to fight and win. These guys are just brought in basically to get their ass whooped, man. Like Moses knows all the tricks. Moses is going in there to last the distance. He took Huey Fury 4 rounds from what I'm seeing here in 2013. Fought Huey Fury twice, actually. Both times it ended on points. Guys like Moses have to fight injured. The majority of fighters fight injured. Elite ones too. But what's the difference? They have access to the top physios, doctors, and treatment. And they can schedule their fights a little differently for Journeymen. Moses is actually pretty popular at the York Hall. He's plied his trade there a lot. Because Moses don't just survive. He'll do a little bit of showboating, wave to the crowd, or, embarrass his less experienced prospect who's undefeated, or maybe, they're expecting things to happen for this guy. Show him the ropes. Stuff that he hasn't seen as a pro.
But this bum is taking the easy matches. Fight another bum.
The Journeyman is just as important as Floyd Mayweather or Muhammad Ali. Believe it or not. The sport couldn't survive without them. I don't want to sound like violence should come out for them, but the sport just couldn't survive. But they're the lifeblood of the sport. I guarantee you, if you ask some punters who've seen Moses or the likes of Moses fight Journeyman, there'll be many a night where they'll tell you, well, Moses actually won that fight but didn't get it. There'll be many a night where the crowd will boo the decision, but that will quickly be forgotten and the prospect will move on. Moses and his ilk are used to fighting at short notice, so sometimes they'll have to go in there even if they've got a cut that's barely healed and chance their arm. Sometimes they have a good night and they hurt their opponent, and unless they take them out cold, they could be subject to, well, I can't finish the guy. I don't have enough road work in my legs, or it's short notice. It's just like, these are the realities, because when you're looking at elite boxers finishing guys off, the margins of them getting stoppages and performing better than a Journeyman, a Trialhorse, or a Gatekeeper is the fact that they're getting excellent coaching, strategic coaching, and their physical conditioning. Going the distance with Daniel Dubois will be a victory for David Howe. It will be a victory for him. He was stopped conclusively, it was quite, a demolition job by Dave Allen. And now, a month later, you've got to go back in there. What's his confidence like? Is there any residual damage carry over from that stoppage defeat? We saw Eddie pitch Jeff Cave in with his prospect Lawrence Okoli, and it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. Cave didn't have a chance. You just what chance did he have? He was outsized, outgunned, outmatched, out everything. And it's not even in hindsight, man. The way dude looked out of place, man. Just looked out of place. He didn't look up for it or anything. Motivated. Just a paycheck, obviously. Just a paycheck. In fact, it was overcautious matchmaking even for the first fight. And for the second fight, call Moses. Call Moses for the second fight. Moses can jump between cruiser and heavy. Moses will play any tune you want when it comes to skipping between heavy and cruiser. Moses should at least give Lawrence a couple of rounds. At least a couple. And if not, you can't marvel at Lawrence's performance, but you'll have to look at it. If he knocks out Moses spectacularly, you have to look at it and put it in context. Eddie Chambers got Moses out of there, but Eddie's mixed it at top level with the Klitschko's. Got a lot of sparring with the Furies. So, Eddie knows the ring. Eddie knows the ring.
Shut up, old man. I ain't going nowhere.
Like, I was listening to Eddie Hearn recently, and he said Sam Eggington came up to him and said, I just want to be a journeyman, make some money, and he's good. And Eddie had to explain to him, journeymen don't go in there and have wars like you're doing. That's not what they do. And he was so right. Wikipedia, they got a few quotables here. I wonder where they sourced this from. A journeyman is a fighter who has adequate skill, but is not of the caliber of a contender or gatekeeper. Outside of combat sports, a journeyman is a trader or craftsman who has completed an apprenticeship, but is not at the level of a master craftsman. Hence, when applied to sports, a journeyman implies a fighter who is no longer a novice and has the sufficient degree of skill that may be expected from a professional, but who does not have the mastery possessed by the title contenders. Somebody named DeGardia, I don't know if it's Joe DeGardia, in testimony to the United States Senate Committee on Commerce, Science and Transportation, he stated that becoming a journeyman is the fate of many professional boxers, and that a boxer will realize that he has become a journeyman after about 10 years in the profession. Journeyman boxers float from promoter to promoter or manager to manager, hoping to get placed as opponents in fights by promoters and making very little money while doing so. They will fight all the time anywhere in order to make enough money to get by. In earlier testimony to the committee, it had been reported that some journeyman boxers regard themselves as existing in the sport solely as a body for better men to beat on. They also report about the history of the journeyman, just a little tidbit here. I don't know where they're sourcing it from. Reports that the activities of journeyman boxers changed over the course of the 20th century, with journeymen of the 1920s fighting a couple of times per week and spending little time in the gymnasium, but journeymen of the 1990s fighting a couple of times per year and sparring in the gymnasium 3 or 4 times per week. I don't know about journeymen fighting 2 times a year. I really don't know about that. They don't get paid enough to fight twice a year. The only way they could do that is if they supplement that with another income, another job. Wikipedia also has a couple of quotes from Nate Campbell and Michael Murray. Let's start with Nate. He says, "Journeymen are the foundation of boxing. Without journeymen, you don't get the Miguel Cottos, the Nate Campbells, or the Juan Guzmans. You give me 10 guys who are journeymen, and I'll give you 15 or 20 guys that they, the journeymen, made world champions." Michael Murray, who passed away in 2011 actually, a heavyweight from Manchester. He fought Albert Sanowski when he was a contender, Danny Williams when Williams still had a lot left in the tank, or at least more than we see him parading around today. Now, Danny Williams is a journeyman, he's still boxing today. Luan Krasniqi, former world title contender, he fought him. Scott Welsh, another world title contender. Timo Hoffman, European level. He actually beat Kevin McBride, who beat Tyson. I remember that. He lost to Michael Sprott. Now, all the fights I'm calling out here, they're losing fights. He lost to Johnny Nelson, Wayne Llewellyn, who was a contender at one stage, Pele Reed. Lost twice to Danny Williams. I remember seeing the Herbie Hyde fight on ITV. He did beat Julius Francis, though, who had his soles of his boots advertised by the Sun newspaper, if you can remember, when he fought Mike Tyson. Michael Murray fought Zeljko Mavrovic, who gave Lennox Lewis hell. John Ruiz knocked him out. Derek Williams, he beat Derek Williams. That's when Derek was really... Scott Welsh beat him again. Terry Dunstan, Herbie Hyde, a couple of times actually, beat him up. Marcus Butt, former WBO cruiserweight champion. John Fury, Tyson Fury's dad, won a technical decision against him. Clifton Mitchell, who we see doing a lot of security around British boxing, and he manages a few fighters himself. He knocked out Michael Murray. Noel Corliss, John Westgarth, all British guys. John Fury actually beat him twice. Yeah, definite journeyman, you know. Give you some rounds, then he'd probably collapse or go the distance. He got very esoteric with his. He said, "I sold my soul to the flesh trade. I paraded isolated muscles, controlled by an isolated mind. Promoters and managers are the farmers, and we are the cattle." He's the author of a book called The Journeyman, actually, so that's interesting.
Protect yourselves at all times.
A lot of the descriptions, bums, journeymen, gatekeepers, is it down to interpretation, or did they have a point? Because when I was reading it out, they said that the journeyman doesn't have the same championship qualities as a contender, and they had the journeyman a level below the gatekeeper. What is the gatekeeper? Who is the gatekeeper? Like, David Howe, I didn't class him as a journeyman. For one, he still has a winning record, but he hasn't achieved nothing in the sport. Like, I'm looking at Kevin Howard, who fought Sugar Ray Leonard when he came back. 21 victories, 8 losses, 1 draw. Lost a majority decision to contender, Roger Stafford, who was destroyed by Don Curry in a title defense. Got floored 3 times. I remember watching that. The 3 knockdown rule stopped that one. 2 majority decisions to Roger Stafford. He beat Dick Eklund, who was immortalized in the Mickey Ward film, his brother, who claimed he floored Sugar Ray Leonard. He also defeated Bobby Joe Young, who was a fringe contender, who ended the career of Aaron Pryor. He lost on points to Marlon Starling, on points to Mark Medall, who actually challenged Thomas Hearns and was a fringe contender as well, or a contender of sorts. He was stopped in 9 by Sugar Ray Leonard on his comeback, but had Ray on the deck, had Ray on the floor. Yeah, he caught Ray as Ray was letting his hands go and floored him. Heart-stopping moments, man. I remember watching that in the place I was staying when I left home, man. And like, damn, man, it was very noisy that Saturday afternoon, man. Like, 84. And I still remember Ray throwing that shoe shine combination to the body. I was going, oh, shit, like, wow. This is Ray Leonard, man. This is Ray Leonard. This is Ray Leonard. And he came back and stopped him controversially in the 9th. One of the judges only had Ray 1 point up at the time of the stoppage. And I don't know if boxing was protecting its investment when it stopped the fight. Howard was hurt. He was hurt. He was hurt. But he seemed to almost recover totally when the referee stopped it. And it was controversial. Let's not forget. Get by Kevin Howard. Multi-million-dollar fight with Marvin Hagler. And there was a few people who wanted to see that, who had a vested interest in that fight happening for obvious reasons. Just saying. He also lost another decision to Robert Hines, who won the light middleweight title against Matthew Hilton. He lost a majority decision to Curtis Summit, another fringe contender, who I remember came over here and destroyed Tony Collins, who was probably our best light middle at the time. Yeah. And his last fight was a TKO loss to Simon Brown. So he went in extremely tough. Extremely tough. He had a winning record. He was gatekeeper come journeyman. I don't know. It's difficult. I think the lines are blurred. I think they both carry over into the other at times. I do believe that. Gatekeeper and journeyman, they're kind of nice words as well. Nice names. Like, people who have good words to say. They're the foundation of boxing and whatnot. Well, what about bums? Could boxing survive without the bum? The dude who just can't fight. And I'm not going to suggest a fighter to put in that category. I just don't have the heart to. I don't want to put no fighter out there as my example. But let me know what you think journeyman is, a gatekeeper. Is there no difference? Where's the separation from that, a bum? Some examples of some fighters to fit the categories. Some stories that you might want to share on the topic. Peace.